My name is Sarah, and this is my story, the story of a girl who had a glimpse of happiness but couldn't hold on to it. I was the third of 4 sisters, with one younger than me, and I had 2 older brothers. My mother was always in the house, perpetually ill, and my father, he was as good as erased from our destiny. He had killed someone and was in prison for the crime. People called him a convict, but to us, he was still our father, whether he was behind iron bars or anywhere else in the world. Worry was a permanent fixture on my mother's face. Every morning, she'd wake up and say little prayers, for my brothers, for me, hoping a good marriage proposal would come our way. But who would want a daughter-in-law from a home whose patriarch was in jail for murder? My brothers tried their best, searching for a match, but doors slammed shut the moment people learned of our situation. Some were blunt: "We will not marry our son into a murderer's family." Those words stabbed me like a knife, but I remained silent. Then, one day, life took a different turn. A proposal came. A distant relative of my mother had put it forward. The man's name was David. He was from a wealthy family and had been living in Italy for many years. When I heard he lived abroad, a ray of hope ignited within me. Perhaps this man from a foreign land wouldn't care about my father's past. When David's mother met me for the first time, her eyes held both surprise and admiration. She kept looking at me and my mother, saying, "The girl is stunning. You rarely see such beauty in our community." That day, no one asked about my father. My mother didn't say a word, and neither did David's mother. It seemed keeping the truth hidden was mutually beneficial. We knew that once the match was fixed, the remaining questions would fade away. David came to the States, and the wedding was arranged quickly. His mother said, "My son has returned after 10 years. He needs to feel at home here, his house needs to feel alive." When I first saw David, I noticed a weariness in his eyes, as if time had etched questions onto his face, but he seemed smart and understanding. The wedding happened in a flash. I knew if the truth had come out, everything would have been over. My mother repeatedly warned me, "Whatever happens, don't let the truth slip out. That truth will destroy your future." The day after the wedding, David told me, "I'm tied up with work. I have to return to Italy soon, but the thought of leaving you is so hard." I replied, "You should go, but please, never lose touch." He promised, and he kept his word. He would visit every year, sometimes for Christmas, sometimes for Thanksgiving. Each time, he brought a special gift for me, toys for the children, and jewelry for my mother-in-law. We had everything, except enough time. But even his presence for a few days would light up the house. After he left, I would immerse myself in housework again. My mother-in-law didn't say much, but at least she was never rude to my face. When David left, he would leave some money for me. I used it to buy things for the home, new dishes, clothes for the kids. One day, my mother-in-law asked, "What was the need for all this?" "I just wanted to brighten up the house, Mom," I said. She fell silent, but the look she gave me made me feel like I had done something wrong. After David left, the days were consumed by chores. The kids would play after breakfast while I cleaned. Managing the house, putting the kids to bed, doing laundry, it had all become a routine, like a stone, unmoving and unbreakable. That day, I went to hang the clothes to dry. I was holding a new dress my husband had sent. Finding a moment alone, I had put it on. My mother-in-law came into the yard. She looked me up and down and said, "What is this you're wearing? Did anyone in your family ever wear something like this?" With my eyes lowered, I said quietly, "David sent it, Mom. He wants me to look nice." She scoffed, "Great, was this the only thing missing? I see you've started a new fashion trend on your husband's money." I said nothing. I had learned to stay silent, knowing any reply would lead to a complaint sent straight to my family. A couple of days later, I ordered some things for the children because my son had a fever. The doctor had recommended soup, so I bought some chicken bones and vegetables. When my mother-in-law saw the grocery bag, her face soured with disapproval. "What's all this? A new expense every day." I stammered, "My son has a fever. The doctor said to give him something nutritious." She laughed mockingly. "Did the doctor say that, or did you just want it for yourself? When my kids were little, I raised them on salt water." I quietly took the groceries to the kitchen. That evening, the phone rang. It was David. He said, "Sarah, Mom is saying you're spending too much, always ordering things." The words wouldn't come out of my throat. I managed a gentle reply. I haven't spent frivolously. The kids were sick, so I bought some necessities. He said, I trust you completely, but Mom says all the money used to come to her, and now that you ask for it, it feels a bit strange to me. The next week, the money didn't arrive. At first, I thought it was just delayed, but after 2 weeks, I grew suspicious. I asked my mother-in-law, did David send the money? From now on, all the money will come to me, she said. If you need something, ask me. But he used to give me a little for my expenses, I said. She waved her hand dismissively. He's your husband, not your father. He has many other financial responsibilities. The next day, I asked for milk for the children. She said, the milk is finished. I have to save a little for tea. Then what about the children? I asked. We'll see tomorrow, she replied. The children started crying, so I stirred some sugar into water and gave it to them. Holding my daughter close, my heart ached, but I swallowed my tears. During this time, I spoke to David again. I have nothing left now. I have to ask Mom for everything the children need. David said, Sarah, Mom says you have no sense of budget. She says she will handle all the expenses to avoid unnecessary spending. And what about my small, personal needs? I asked. Tell Mom whatever you need, he said. In that moment, a void opened up inside me. The same man who always brought me something special was now measuring my needs based on someone else's words. The next week, the kids were eating lentil soup and rice, and tears welled up in my eyes. My son asked, Mom, can we get those crackers from the store? I asked my mother-in-law. She said, we have guests coming tomorrow. We'll get things for them. Nothing for now. I sat with empty hands, trying to distract my children with one story, then another. After putting them to sleep, I had nothing left for myself, and the thought of asking for more felt like a heavy burden of shame. Sometimes I would call my sister to ask how she was, but I never told her about my own situation. What could she do? She had her own home, her own problems. After David returned to Italy, my world seemed to shrink. The money had always been in my mother-in-law's hands, but this time, her fists were clenched tight. Anytime I asked for something, she would first glare at me and say, people like you would spend everything in 2 days. David's name was mentioned less and less in the house. Whenever I said I wanted to talk to him, she would say, he's very busy. What do you need to talk to him about all the time? Husbands earn outside, wives manage the home. I was trying my best not to give anyone a reason to complain. I took care of the children in the morning, did some sewing in the afternoon, and prepared dinner in the evening. I did everything on time so no one could say a word. One day I said, Mom, our daughter has had a fever for 3 days. We need to take her to the doctor. She replied, going to the doctor is too expensive. Give her warm water, the fever will come down on its own. I said nothing, just sat there, placing a damp cloth on my daughter's forehead. 2 days later, when the fever worsened, I decided to take her to the doctor myself. When I told my mother-in-law, she said, go, but don't take the kids and don't buy any medicine, it'll just be an unnecessary expense. I used the money I had saved from my sewing work to buy medicine and didn't tell anyone when I returned. I knew if I did, I would only be met with more taunts. A few days later, I was sitting in the yard, mending my children's old clothes. My son's shirt had so many patches that it looked nothing like new. My little girl's sandal was broken, so I tied it with a piece of old cloth to make it last. The next day, my daughter asked, Mom, when will we get new clothes? I'll get them soon, sweetheart. Just pray to God, I replied. She asked again, Mom, will Dad bring them when he comes? I nodded, praying silently in my heart, David, please come back soon. A few days later, David called. I told him, the kids' clothes are in a very bad state. It would be great if you could send something. He replied, I sent everything to Mom last month. She told me she gave it all to you. All I could manage to say was, okay. The next day, I said to my mother-in-law, Mom, my daughter's clothes are very old. Please give me permission to buy some new ones. She laughed sarcastically. Your wishes never end. She's a girl, not a doll. She can manage with 2 sets of clothes. A few days later, guests arrived, my mother-in-law's sister and her sons. Seeing their children, my kids asked, Mom, how come they have such nice clothes? I just said, they live in a big city. Things are cheaper there. My mother-in-law overheard and immediately jabbed, "Teach your children some patience too. They are always asking for something." For the guests, sweets, roast beef, and new curtains were all brought in. The house sparkled, but my room remained the same old mattress, the same damp wall, the same dim light, and me, quiet within it. Because I had finally understood, asking questions only gets doors closed. One evening, my son came running. "Mom, Grandma brought roast beef. Will we get some too?" "Go ask Grandma," I said. He ran to her and came back, disappointed. "Grandma said it's for the grown-ups. We have lentil soup." I heated the soup and tried to hide the smell of the meat from my children. The next day, a video call came. I smiled and put the children in front of the camera. David asked, "Why do they look so weak? Is everything okay?" Yes, everything is fine," I said. "They're just very busy with their studies." "I'll try to come soon," he said. After the call ended, my mother-in-law said, "What did you tell him?" He called and asked me why the children look so weak. Sweet on the face and a complaint in your heart, "Why are you like this?" I replied calmly, "Mom, I didn't say anything wrong. He just asked how they were." She snapped back furiously, "Are you going to lie to me now?" "Sarah, there's a limit to my patience." That day, I made a firm decision. From now on, I would handle all the small tasks for my children myself. Mending clothes, fixing sandals, whatever it was. I would find new uses for old things. It had been 3 months since David was gone. In that time, the children's health had improved slightly. I had started taking up embroidery work from a woman nearby. My days felt fuller, sometimes stitching flowers on a dress, other times sewing a border on a curtain. Whatever little money I earned, I saved for milk or medicine. I didn't tell my mother-in-law anything, because she always said, "This is household management, not your personal whim." One morning, as I was giving the children breakfast, there was a loud knock on the door. My younger sister's husband was standing there. He held a phone in his hand. "Take the phone, someone wants to talk to you." I put the phone to my ear, and a voice came from the other side. It was a friend of David's who lived with him in Italy. His voice was trembling. He said, "Sarah, David is no longer with us." I was shaken. "What are you saying?" "David had a heart attack last night," he said. "We rushed him to the hospital, but it was no use." The phone slipped from my hand. Darkness spread before my eyes. I sat on the floor for a moment, as if everything had stopped. The children came to me. "Mom, what happened? Was that Dad on the phone?" I lowered my head and said, "Dad has gone very far away." By afternoon, the house was filled with people. My mother-in-law started wailing. Women from the neighborhood came and took over the kitchen, but my mother-in-law kept telling every visitor, my son was happy. Someone must have been troubling him. When the crowd thinned, she came to my room. I was sitting on the floor, holding David's photo. Without even knocking, she began, "This all happened because of your bad luck. You finished my son." I looked up and asked in a low voice, "What did I do, Mom?" He himself used to say on the phone that he was fine. "If he was fine, you wouldn't have troubled him so much," she shot back. "Constant complaints, crying every month, he died under that stress." I said nothing. She left, but her words carved a permanent scar on my heart. The next day, David's body arrived. I saw him in my white dress, his face was peaceful, and those eyes, the eyes that had made promises just a short while ago, were now closed forever. People kept coming, offering condolences. Some patted my head, others prayed. The next day, when the house was quieter, my mother-in-law called me aside. "From now on, you are here at my mercy. You will do as I say." I replied calmly, "Mom, I just want to live with my children with dignity." She scoffed, "Dignity? If you were so dignified, we wouldn't have had so many complaints about you. And now, David isn't even here." I stood there, motionless. In her eyes, my value was now 0. She saw me not as David's wife, but as a burden. The following week, the children's school was starting. I said to my mother-in-law, "Mom, we need to buy notebooks and backpacks." She said, "The old ones will do. What's the need for new ones?" I stated clearly, "The old ones are torn." "My advice," she said, "is to stop their studies. It's not possible in your situation." I heard her, but I didn't give up. With the money from my sewing, I slowly bought notebooks, pens, and backpacks. I requested the school to reduce the fees a little, assuring them I would manage. I would make the children laugh, keep their spirits light, but my mother-in-law's behavior grew colder and more contemptuous by the day. If dinner was even slightly late, she would yell, "You're always making excuses. Did we sign a contract to feed you?" One evening, I was sitting in the yard sewing, with the children playing near me. My mother-in-law's voice boomed, "Make some lentil soup and feed them there. The roast beef is for guests." "What standing do your children have?" I said quietly, "Mom, they are David's children." She screamed, "No, they are not my son's children. They are the marks of your misfortune." Hearing this, my son came to me and asked, "Mom, why doesn't Grandma like us?" I hugged him tightly and said, "No, sweetie, she's just tired. Don't you worry." From that day on, I began to feel that for me and my children, the only thing left in that house was air, and even that was sharp and biting. After David's death, whatever little gentleness was left in my mother-in-law had vanished. Now, her eyes held only hatred. Her words were filled only with accusations. If my children ever cried, she would say, "Crying all the time has become their nature. Just like the mother, so are the children." I had stopped listening. But my children were still young. They didn't understand everything, but they felt it all. My daughter would often come into my arms at night and ask, "Mom, why doesn't Grandma love me?" I would stroke her hair and just say, "She's tired, honey, that's why she's a little irritable." Christmas was approaching. Preparations were underway throughout the house. The markets were bustling. My children too began talking excitedly about new clothes. One day, my son said, "Mom, I'm going to wear a blue shirt this time, just like the ones Dad used to bring, right?" I just nodded. But I knew in my heart that this time, the blue shirt would probably remain only in his dreams. I said to my mother-in-law, "Mom, Christmas is coming. Let's arrange for some clothes for the children." She was reading the newspaper. Without even looking up, she said, "Now I have to buy their clothes too? You do nothing yourself, just keep asking for things." I gathered my courage and said, "Mom, I am really trying. I'm even saving money from my sewing. It's a happy day for the children, let's do something small." She suddenly threw the newspaper down and said angrily, "You're worried about happiness after my son's death? You got your chance, didn't you, to wear new clothes? You're the one who first lost a husband and now you're taking the children down with you." I fell silent. Without a word, I went to my room and closed the door. A little later, my daughter came to me and asked innocently, "Mom, will we get new clothes for Christmas?" Stroking her hair, I said in a soft voice, "Maybe not this time, sweetie, but definitely next time." 2 days before Christmas, my mother-in-law went to the market and returned with many bags. She had bought clothes, shoes, everything for her other 2 sons and their families. She opened everything and showed it off proudly. I sat quietly in a corner, just watching it all. My son came to me and asked in a whisper, "Mom, where are our clothes?" Hearing this, my mother-in-law said, "Those are the dreams your mother showed you. Your days for new clothes are over. This house now belongs only to them, the ones who have a real right to it." On Christmas morning, I dressed the children in their old but clean clothes. With the little money I had, I made some rice and crackers. All day, the children sat by the door, watching people come and go. Seeing the shimmering clothes of every child who passed by, they gradually fell silent. A little later, my daughter came to me and asked innocently, "Mom, why is everyone's clothing so beautiful, and not ours?" I placed a small, shiny clip in her hand, one I had made from a broken piece of my old jewelry, and said with a smile, "Look, the sun will sparkle in your hair today." She smiled, but the smile on my own lips was stuck somewhere. In the afternoon, my mother-in-law announced, "The festive meal is for the guests. You go heat up the lentil soup." Without a word, I heated the soup and called the children to eat. They showed a little happiness seeing the sweet dishes, but my mother-in-law immediately yelled, "Don't even look that way. Your place is only with the soup." I tried to reason with her. "Mom, please give one cookie to the children, they are insisting." She yelled even louder, "A cookie? For children like yours? Go, take your soup and sit quietly." My son got up and walked towards the cookies. My mother-in-law shoved him back. He started crying and said, "Mom, if Dad were here, he would have definitely brought me a cookie, wouldn't he?" I held him in a tight embrace, calming him with my own burning heart. But that day, no promise came from my lips, only a lullaby. In the evening, my mother-in-law had invited guests. The kitchen was filled with the aroma of sweet dishes. I made the children sit inside so they wouldn't run to the door again. But my son quietly slipped out of my arms and went outside. A few moments later, there was a commotion. I ran out and saw my mother-in-law was holding my son by the ear. He was crying, and she was shouting, "You took a cookie from my guest's plate? You have no discipline." I freed him and said, "He's just a child, he was hungry." She became even angrier. Hunger teaches discipline, not theft. And you are the one who is like this, that's why he behaves this way. I picked up my son and took him inside. There was only one question in his eyes, "Mom, are we really that bad?" I didn't answer. I just began to feel that my children's desires were now being judged as crimes. I had learned to live with them, but every day I had to stand before them with my hands folded in helplessness. Christmas Day, which once brought us joy, had now become a place where my motherhood, my poverty, and my helplessness were displayed as an annual spectacle of sorrow. The day after Christmas, I kept the children inside all day. I didn't want them to go to the door again. But how long can you hold back small children? My son would repeatedly go near the door, look out, and say, "Mom, it smells so good." I would pull him close, distracting him sometimes with a story, sometimes with the excuse of sewing work. But in the evening, he quietly slipped out and reached the guest room. I ran after him and saw he was standing near a guest's plate with his hand outstretched. My mother-in-law gave him a sharp push. "Thief!" I intervened. "He's a child, he was just asking." My mother-in-law shot me a look and said, "This is what you've taught him, right? First, you ate your fill, and now you're making your children beg for cookies?" She kept shouting in front of the guests. I picked up my son and went back to the room. From behind me, her voice came, "From now on, they will stay in the basement room. If you open your mouth, consider your bread gone too." The next morning, when the children woke up, the door was locked from the outside. I called out, "Mom, open the door." But the only answer was silence. By afternoon, an old steel plate was pushed in through the small opening at the bottom of the storeroom door. On it was a piece of dry bread and some leftover watery lentil soup. I told the children to eat. My daughter sniffed it and turned her face away. "Mom, what is this?" "This is it, honey. Eat, or you'll stay hungry," I said. She bit into the bread and immediately made a face. "It's too hard, I can't eat it." "Eat slowly, drink some water," I advised. Just then, my little son said, "Mom, I want a cookie." I fell silent, avoiding his gaze. The mosquitoes were terrible at night. There was no fan in the storeroom, only a broken window. The children were drenched in sweat. I used the end of my dress as a fan for them. My son would wake up again and again, crying, "Mom, when will we go back to our room?" "Soon, sweetie. Just let Grandma's anger cool down," I'd say. "This would never have happened if Dad were here," he said. I placed my hand on his forehead, but I couldn't hide the pain in my heart. The third day, it was the same old soup and dry bread. I knocked on the door. "Mom, the children have a fever, please give them medicine. We're also running out of water." A voice came from outside, "Be quiet. If you open your mouth again, I'll stop this too." Later in the day, we were told guests were coming. I hugged my son tightly and said, "Just a little longer, God will make everything right." Just then, my son lay down on the floor and began to throw a tantrum. "I want a cookie. I'll only eat a cookie." My daughter started crying too. "Mom, I want to go outside." I hugged them both and thought, when a mother can't feed her own children, a little piece of her heart dies every day. My son ran to the door and started banging on it. "Grandma, open the door, I want to go out." I quickly grabbed him. "Sweetie, don't make a sound, or she'll get even angrier." In the evening, my mother-in-law opened the door and peeked inside. She was holding another plate. This time, it had only water and half a piece of bread. "You have ruined our reputation," she said. "Now, face the punishment." "Mom, what did we do?" "The children are hungry," I pleaded. Closing the door, she said, "Learn your lesson now. This is your real place." I gave the children water. My daughter said, "Mom, we didn't do anything wrong. Why does Grandma treat us like this?" I kissed her forehead lovingly and said, because the world doesn't treat everyone the same. But we are good people, we just have to be patient. That night, my son kept murmuring in his sleep, "Mom, there was a cookie on Grandma's guest's plate." I just listened quietly to his breathing. When morning came, the light seemed a bit brighter. Laughter and cheerful noises came from outside again, but the door was still locked. My daughter asked again, "Mom, are we going to live here forever?" "No, sweetie," I replied. "God hears everything. We will be free soon." I was telling myself, this is just a phase, it will pass. This is injustice, but it won't last forever. The walls of the storeroom now had dirt smudges on them. The children had started drawing pictures with their fingers. My daughter drew a heart and said, "Mom, this is you, and this is me." I smiled and said, "That's beautiful. One day, we'll take this heart and go outside." For the first time, in that moment, I felt that this heart wasn't made of dirt, but of hope. And maybe this captivity wouldn't last much longer. On the fourth day, the storeroom door opened. My mother-in-law's voice came, "You can stay outside today, but don't let anyone see your faces. There's an event, people are coming." "Mom, please give the children some clean clothes," I asked. She turned and said, "Just stay as you have been for the past few days." I had already washed their old clothes, so I put those on them and explained, "Stay quiet, don't ask anyone for anything." My daughter whispered, "Mom, will we get to eat too?" I avoided her gaze and replied, "We'll see, honey, for now, just stay with me." In the afternoon, the house filled up, relatives, neighbors, everyone was there. Food was cooking in the kitchen, pastries were being made, and tables were set in the living room. My mother-in-law was overseeing the guests while her other sons and their families attended to them. I found a corner for myself and sat the children down next to me. My son kept sniffing the air and looking at me, but he didn't say a word. When the meal was served, my mother-in-law told her daughter-in-law, "Keep their food separate. We don't want to upset the guests." I said nothing. I just sat the kids in the yard and started arranging the guests' shoes neatly. The guests were busy eating when a commotion broke out. I turned to see my son had reached a guest's plate. He had tried to pick up a cookie. My mother-in-law's screeching voice filled the air, insolent. "Who taught you this?" In front of everyone, she slapped his hand away. "A thief. I'll teach you a lesson right now." I ran to him and picked him up. "Mom, let him go. He's just a child, he doesn't understand." She yelled again, "If he's a child, why weren't you watching him? Is this what you teach them? You beg, and you've turned your children into beggars too." The guests fell silent. Some looked down, some showed sympathy, but no one had the courage to stop her. I stood up and said in front of everyone, "Mom, even in death, there should be some humanity left. Have you ever considered how many days this child has been living on just the smell of food?" My mother-in-law advanced towards me. "You talk back to me? Now I'll have to teach you a lesson." In that instant, a man's voice cut in. "That's enough, ma'am." I looked back. It was Mr. Mason, the same guest whose plate my son had approached. He stepped forward and said, "That was the act of a hungry child. You have just insulted a mother who has been enduring everything in silence." My mother-in-law said angrily, "This is my house. I'll teach them however I want." He came forward, placing a hand on my son's back. "He is a child, not a thief. Didn't your own children do things like this when they were little?" But no one said anything then. I looked at my mother-in-law. She was quiet, but the rage was clear on her face. The meal ended. The guests left. I gave my son some water and quietly took him inside. That night, my mother-in-law came and threatened me. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone. I still have to teach you a lesson." I said softly, "Mom, the one who starves another's children should be the one who feels shame. You've been very generous." She raised her hand but stopped. Then she turned and left. The next morning, Mr. Mason came again. He sat me down in the living room. "Sarah, I saw everything yesterday. I can't stay silent after seeing your condition." I looked down. "Sir, I just want a roof over my children's heads. I don't want to be a burden on anyone." "Burdens are those who steal what is rightfully yours," he said. "Your rights are being taken from you. I am with you." For the first time, I saw hope in someone's eyes. He said, "I'll come again tomorrow evening. We need to talk." Be ready. No more staying silent. I nodded, my mind made up. No more silence, it was time to fight for my rights. This wasn't just about my dignity, it was about my children's future. After he left, the house was quiet. But my mother-in-law's face was even more tense. She ate her dinner in silence, not speaking to me or the children. I felt a storm was coming. The next morning at breakfast, I said, "Mom, I need to get milk for the children. Please give me some money." She looked at me calmly and said, "The begging stops here. How long am I supposed to carry the burden of raising you?" I replied gently, "Mom, this isn't your burden. It's my children's right to be here." She waved her hand dismissively. "Enough. Don't even say his name. He was your husband, not my son. You were always a complainer anyway." It was the first time she had openly said he wasn't her biological son. For me, that sentence was like an earthquake. I asked in astonishment, "What do you mean? David wasn't your son?" She turned and said, "No. He was my husband's son from his first wife. I only tolerated you to protect my own children's inheritance. Now, it's time for you to leave this house." I stood there, frozen. My daughter was pulling at my dress. "Mom, will we get bread today?" I pleaded with her again. "Mom, where will I go? I have no support. You know my family's situation. My brothers won't take me in." "That's your problem," she said. "This house is not for you anymore." I quickly dressed the children, covered my head with a scarf, and walked out the door. My mother-in-law locked it from the inside. My son asked, "Mom, where are we going?" "Let's find some shade first, then we'll see," I said. We went and sat at a street corner. The sun was harsh, the ground hot. My daughter kept standing up and looking down the road. "Mom, will Dad come to get us?" "No, sweetie. Now, we have to find our own place," I said. The afternoon wore on. No one offered us water. The children were exhausted. I spread a cloth on the side of the road and laid them down to sleep. Holding my daughter's hand, I closed my eyes and prayed, "God, I have been patient. Now, I ask for your justice." My tears flowed freely. I didn't tell anyone, didn't call out for help, I just sat quietly on the ground, as if the earth itself was my last resort. Towards evening, Mr. Mason arrived. Someone must have told him. He saw me and asked in surprise, "Sarah, you're here? What happened?" I looked at him silently, saying nothing. He looked at my children, who were sitting on the ground, crying softly. "I need to talk to these people," he said. "This isn't humane." I said softly, "Let it be, sir. They've closed the door. Their hearts are closed too." "No," he said. "You're coming with me now. This may not be your house, but I can't leave you alone." I hesitated. "Sir, I don't want to be a burden on you." "You are not a burden," he said. "You are helpless. And to leave the helpless alone is the greatest crime of all." I picked up my children. He took us to his home. His wife came to the door and gave my children water. She brought me a clean dress. "Sarah," she said, "this is your home now." I saw in her eyes a radiant kindness that I hadn't seen in my own home for years. That night, holding my son to my chest, I said, "Now, we will start a new life. And this life will be for you, for your mother's rights." My son whispered, "Mom, can we go back to Dad's house again?" Stroking his head, I said, "Yes, sweetie, we will go, but we will go to claim our rights, not to beg for them." The journey for justice had begun. And I prayed, "God, you preserved my faith, now please protect my rights." 2 days had passed at Mr. Mason's home. His wife was taking care of me and the children in every possible way. She gave us a room, new mattresses, and clean clothes for the children. There was a warmth in their behavior that I had been thirsting for years. I kept thinking, is this what respect feels like? Was I tasting it for the very first time? One day after breakfast, Mr. Mason came to me and said, "Sarah, you have endured a lot. But now, staying silent and enduring is the real crime. You have to stand up for justice." I looked down. I am a lone woman with 2 children. On whose support will I fight? He said gently, "You are not alone. I am with you. I cannot stand by and watch this injustice." "Can we really go to court?" I asked. Why not? He said. You are David's widow, the mother of his children. The law will give you back the rights that were stolen from you. You just have to be brave. That same evening, he arrived with a lawyer. The lawyer said David's death certificate, the children's birth certificates, and the marriage certificate are all in order. Your mother-in-law committed a crime by throwing you out of the house. That house was in David's name, and after his death, the legal heirs are you and your children. I listened quietly. There was fear in my heart, but hope was overpowering it. The lawyer said, we can file a petition in court. We can get a temporary injunction so they can neither sell the house nor withdraw any money. Mr. Mason asked for my permission. Sarah, I will fight this battle for you. Are you with me? I nodded. Yes. For my children, I am with you every step of the way. The next day, we arrived at the courthouse. It was the first time I had ever seen its doors. On one hand, my heart was pounding. On the other, my children's faces flashed before my eyes. Mr. Mason said, just listen patiently. The truth speaks for itself. The lawyer filed the petition and made it clear in the preliminary hearing that throwing me out was illegal and that I was the rightful heir to my husband's property. The judge issued a notice to the other party and put a hold on selling or transferring any assets until then. Outside the courthouse, Mr. Mason said, Sarah, the first step is a success. The next few days were quiet, but internally, everything had changed. My mother-in-law found out a case had been filed against her. Her sons were running around town, making calls, but no one could save her. One day, Mr. Mason said, Sarah, you have started the biggest fight of your life. There's no turning back now. I said, I don't want anything, just my children's rights. At the next hearing, my mother-in-law came herself. She had a veil on, but her face had the same hardness. When the judge questioned her, she said, this woman is lying. We never threw her out, she left on her own. Our lawyer presented all the evidence, my medical receipts, photos of the children's condition, statements from neighbors. The judge said, the evidence indicates that Sarah was illegally removed from the property. The court orders the defendant to present sufficient counter-evidence. Returning from court, Mr. Mason said, they are taking you seriously now. This is your first victory. That night, my son came to me and said, Mom, when can we go back to our old room? I picked him up and said, when we get our rights back, that room will be ours again. At dinner, Mr. Mason's wife said, Sarah, the courage with which you took this step is something very few women can do. I thanked her, thinking, this support wasn't just for me, but it was a helping hand that was now with me. Meanwhile, the lawyer told us the court might give a verdict soon. Be fully prepared. I said in my heart, oh God, I have always been patient. Today, you have brought me to the steps of justice. Now, let the day of justice come soon. The truth had entered the courtroom, and that door, the one that had been slammed shut, was about to be opened by the voice of the law. On the day of the final hearing, I wore a simple white dress that Mr. Mason's wife had given me. My daughter fixed my collar with her own hands, and my little son said, Mom, are we going to win today? I smiled and said, just pray, sweetie. The truth never loses. The courtroom was filled with anticipation. Both of my mother-in-law's sons were with her. Their faces no longer held hardness, just unease and shame. The judge began to deliver the verdict after hearing the defendant's argument. He said, it has been proven that Sarah was illegally removed from the property after her husband's death. Since the deceased, David, left no will, according to the laws of this country, his widow and children are the legal heirs. The court orders that a fair share of the property be given to Sarah and her children. My hands automatically went up in a gesture of thanks. Mr. Mason placed a hand on my shoulder. Sarah, you got your rights. As they left the courtroom, my mother-in-law's sons didn't look at me even once. My mother-in-law herself said nothing, as if her tongue had been silenced. When we returned, Mrs. Mason brought out sweets for the children. My son asked, Mom, can we go to our house now? Yes, sweetie, I said. That house is no longer just a memory, it's our reality. 2 days later, we got news that my mother-in-law had suffered a stroke. She was admitted to the hospital. Her own sons had said they were busy and hadn't come. People in the neighborhood said she was lying alone in her bed, and her daughters-in-law weren't even going near her. Mr. Mason said, Sarah, this could be her final time. If you wish, you can go see her once. I thought for a moment and said, I will go. Not to settle scores, but to fulfill my humanity. We reached the hospital. She was lying on the bed. When she saw me, tears streamed from her eyes. Her mouth wouldn't move, she just gestured with her eyes. I filled a glass of water and brought it to her lips. I gave her small sips. She was trying to raise her hand, perhaps to ask for forgiveness. I said, Mom, I am the same Sarah you called a jinx, a beggar. But today, I am the same woman who has come to give you water. Her tears flowed even faster. I placed my hand on her forehead and said, I forgive you. Mr. Mason said, Sarah, you have shown a big heart. This is the respect you fought for. On the way back, I told my children, what we do to others comes back to us. That's why we should always do good, no matter how badly the other person has treated us. The next day, I was informed about the division of the property from the court. Mr. Mason said, Now, your and your children's future is secure. Looking at the courthouse doors, I said in my heart, Thank you, God, for standing by the truth. That same week, Mr. Mason told me that his youngest son, Adam, who had returned from Dubai, was very impressed by my integrity and courage. He said, he wishes to give you and the children permanent support. He wants to marry you. I was stunned. Mr. Mason, I was married once. That relationship is still with me in my memories. Adam knows everything, he said. He respects you as David's wife. And he is ready to accept your children as his own, not just for you, but for them. I asked for some time. I thought about it for 2 days, talked to my children. My son asked, Mom, should we call our new husband Dad? I said, if someone accepts you as his own and respects you, he is worthy of being called Dad. A few days later, I told Mr. Mason, if Adam is truly willing to give these children his name, then I am ready. The wedding was simple. Adam picked up my children and said, From now on, you are my son and my daughter. With tears of joy in their eyes, Mr. and Mrs. Mason said, Now, this house is yours. I thought to myself, once, someone grabbed my hand and threw me out of a house. Today, someone is holding my hand and giving me a home. My former mother-in-law is still on her sickbed. Her sons are busy in their own worlds, the same children for whom she had snatched my rights away. I visit her from time to time, give her water, give her medicine. She begs with her eyes, and I quietly provide, because I have now understood, hearts are won not through revenge, but through forgiveness. My war is over. The war was only to make my children's lives better, and now, I don't fight that war alone. For the first time after getting married, I stepped into a house of my own free will. The Masons' home was the same one where I had arrived as a guest a few weeks ago, and now I was their son's wife. The difference wasn't just in the relationship, but in the atmosphere. No one teased me, no one made sarcastic remarks. Adam picked up the children and announced, You are my son and daughter. No one is allowed to say anything to them. He said it in front of everyone, and everyone listened. Within a few days, the children started calling him Dad. I neither forced them nor convinced them. The children recognized on their own what they hadn't received in so many years. Adam would come home in the evening, play with the children, and help with their homework. My daughter would bring him water. My son would tell him stories. He fit into their lives as if he had always been a part of them. One day my son said, Mom, Dad Adam is very nice, just like Dad David was. I replied, David was the first pillar of your destiny. Adam is the pillar of your present. Adam never questioned my quietness. He knew I had lived a life before, had honored a relationship before, and had been broken before. But he tried to mend every broken piece with respect. One day, he said, Sarah, if you want, you can start your studies again. I am with you. I looked at him in surprise. Education, in my situation? He smiled. A woman who can fight such a big battle can conquer books too. I ordered books and started studying alongside my children. The words that once seemed blurry were now clear to read. Mr. and Mrs. Mason called me their daughter. They would introduce me to relatives, saying, This is our daughter, Sarah. One day, Mr. Mason said, Sarah, the courage with which you endured everything has become your true identity. I had nothing but gratitude to offer, but now there was peace in the house. Still, there was one room where the atmosphere of helplessness never lifted. My former mother-in-law was still on her sickbed. The very person who had once blocked my rights now had her own children turn away from her. A woman from the neighborhood came and said, "The mother who once ruled the entire house now yearns even for a glass of water. Her daughters-in-law don't even enter her room." I listened quietly. One day, my heart told me, "Go, see her. Perhaps your presence will make her feel what she ignored for years." I went. The room was the same, the bed was the same, but the face was completely changed. Tears in her eyes, remorse on her face. Seeing me, she couldn't even speak. I held out a glass of water, she couldn't lift her hand. I myself slowly gave her sips of water. Tears streamed down her face. Perhaps she was asking for forgiveness, perhaps she wanted to say, "Forgive me, Sarah." I said, "Mom, I am no longer the person who used to listen to you. Now, I am someone who stands up for herself and lives for her children." On the way back, my daughter asked, "Mom, why did you go to her again?" I answered, "Sweetie, when we do injustice to someone, we forget that God is watching." My son said softly, "Mom, you forgive everyone. Are all mothers like this?" I stroked his cheek and said, "Not all, sweetie. But a mother who has lost everything and gained something back learns that there is nothing in hatred." Now, every day was new. The children were going to school. I did my sewing and my studies. In the evening, I would have tea with Adam. Listening to my day's stories, he would say, "After everything you fought for, you now deserve only peace." In the evenings, I would stand on the balcony, looking at the sky. The same sky where I used to offer prayers years ago. That same prayer, the one I made with patience, had been answered today. I tell everyone, I wasn't a jinx, I was just helpless. My patience changed my destiny. My rights gave me back my name, and today, I am someone who is proud of herself. No matter how deep the darkness of injustice, the light of patience and truth eventually shows the way. Those who snatch the rights of others end up living their own lives at the mercy of others. If you liked today's story, please be sure to like the video and share it with your friends and family. And yes, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please do. Thank you for listening.